Welcome to the today's class. See, in the previous class we have discussed about the principles of metallurgy. So just we can recall the previous topics. Then after that we can start our new topics. So because there should be some continuity, right? So what is the metallurgy? Metallurgy is a process of the purification of the metals because the metals are available in the impure form. They are available in the combined state. So that is, the metals are mixing with the chemical impurities as well as the uh, earthy impurities, because these metals are available in the earth crust. So there may be the chance of the mixing of the metals with the earthy impurities as well as the uh, minerals which were present in the earth crust. Alright, so if you want to purify the metals, so we need to follow certain methods how to remove the earthy impurities and how to remove the chemical impurities. So this total process of the removal of the physical, that is earthy impurities and chemical impurities, so they are like oxides, chlorides, fluorides, okay, etc., whatever the minerals which were present in the earth crust. So this total process, extraction and purification of the metals from the minerals, is called as the metallurgy. So there are the metals are playing very important role in a domestic as well as the industrial purposes. So nowadays, so metals are giving, they are contributing uh, everything actually. If you want to establish an industry, so we need a large scale of the emissions. So all the machineries were made with the metals only. All right, as well as in the industry, in the domestic purpose also, so we were use these metals very well, right? So we have to know the purification, how we are getting the metals, and how they are available, and from the available state, and how we are converting these metals into the pure form. Then after that we are making into our desired form. So right, so this is the metallurgy. Metallurgy is the extraction and purification of the metals from the minerals, is called as the metallurgy. So then after that, first we want to know what is the physical and chemical properties of the metal. So then after that we can see the how we can extract the metal from the minerals. Yeah, so coming to the physical properties of the metal, first, what is the physical state? So generally all the metals are in a solid state, crystalline solids, except mercury. Mercury is in the form of the liquid. So then after that, hardness. So coming to the hardness, all the metals are having the hard surfaces except potassium and sodium. So these two metals are having the soft surface. That's nothing but they are soft in nature. So this we can cut these metals with a knife also even. So then next, after that, melting and boiling points. See, melting and boiling points. So coming to the melting and boiling points, so all the metals are having high melting and boiling point except mercury. So this mercury is having the low melting and boiling points. The next, after that, the density. So it is not mentioned here. So the metals are having the high density when compared to the non-metals, because they are hard enough. No, there is a tight packing, a close packing of the molecule. They have a high density, right? So they are hard, they are having the high density when compared to the non-metals. So then after that, malleability and ductility. See, these are the two special properties of the metals, which where the malleability means making of the metals into the thin sheets is called as the malleability, and ductility means so making of the metals into the wires is called as the ductility. So these are the two specific properties of the metals are shown by these metals. So then after that, coming to the next property, that is metallic lustre. So this is also a specific property of the metal, because see, these metals are having the shiny surfaces when we are polishing the surface. Alright, see, by rubbing on the surface or by the polishing on the surface, so they'll get shiny surfaces. So this property is called as the luster. Lustrous metals are lustrous. So whereas the when compared to the non-metals, so non-metals are non-lustrous because there is no shiny surfaces. So in the case of the non-metals, the next tensile strength. So the stress bearing capacity of the material is called as this tensile strength. So now the metals are having the high tensile strength because they can bear a more stress. Then after that, a thermal and electrical conductivity. Alright, see, when the materials are allowing the passage of the current through it, they are called as the electrical conductors. Then thermal conductors means the passage of the heat. Alright, see here, the metals are acting as a good thermal and electrical conductors. Right, so this is also one physical property. Yeah, then coming to the chemical properties of the metals, so reaction with the dilute acids. See, this is a characteristic property or characteristic reaction of the metals. So when the metals are reacting with the dilute acids, they releases hydrogen gas. So if any substance or element that is by reacting with the dilute acid, if that is releasing the hydrogen gas means, so that is the metal. Alright, so non-metal, they will not release this hydrogen gas. So next, metals are acting as the reducing agent. As we know, so metals are always stay in a positive charge. That means they can readily loses the electron. So if they are losing electrons means they can give electrons to the other substances. So by the giving electrons to the other substances will undergo reduction. Now these metals are responsible for the reduction of the other substances. That's why these metals are called as the reducing agents. Yeah. So next, coming to the differences between the metals and non-metals. So there are the several differences between the metals and non-metals. So are these differences, or we can say the properties of the metals and the properties of the non-metals. So these from this table we can list the properties of the metal as well as the properties of the non-metals also. Yeah, what are the differences? Yeah, metals are solid in state except mercury. Then non-metals are solids, liquids and gases. So these non-metals are available in the three states, but the metals are always in a solid state except mercury. Then coming to the second one, the metals are having hard surfaces. Here non-metals are soft in nature. Okay, so then metals are having high melting and boiling points. Non-metals are having low melting and boiling points. Metals are having high density. Non-metals are having low density. The next, metal shows malleability and ductility. Non-metals does not shows this malleability and ductility. Metals are lustrous. Non-metals does not show luster. Then metals having high tensile strength. Non-metals are having low tensile strength. Yeah, metals are good conductors of thermal as well as electrical. Non-metals are insulators because they will not allow the passage of the current through it. Then metals are acting as a reducing agents. Non-metals are acting as a oxidizing agents. Then metals undergo corrosion. Non-metal does not undergo corrosion. Alright, these are the differences between the metals and the non-metals. So the next terminology which were used in the metallurgy, just we can define the terms which were used in the metallurgy. So then after that we can go to the how we can purify the metals from the minerals. Yeah, first one is a metallurgy. What is the metallurgy? Metallurgy is the extraction and purification of the metals from the mineral is called as the metallurgy. So the next one is a mineral. So mineral is a impure form of the metal which is readily available on the earth crust is called as the mineral. Alright, see, these metals are available in the form of the minerals. So these minerals are the impure form of the metals which were readily available in the earth crust is called as the minerals. So if you take for any metal, so there are the many minerals. For example, you take iron. Iron is having the three minerals, and when we take aluminum, aluminum is having the two minerals. Yeah. So what are the minerals for the iron? So hematite, magnetite, and iron pyrites are the minerals of the iron. And coming to the aluminum, bauxite and cryolite are the minerals for the aluminum. Then next one is like that, not only iron and aluminum. So there are the where all the metals are having their respective minerals. Next, ore. So what is a ore? Ore is a mineral. Ore is a mineral from which we can extract the pure metal most or more efficiently with a low cost is called as the ore. So what is a ore? Ore is a mineral from which we can extract the pure metal more efficiently with a low cost is called as the ore, right? So here when we take the iron, iron is having the three minerals. So out of the three, see which mineral is having most from which mineral we can extract the pure metal most efficiently with a low cost. So that mineral is called as the ore. Here hematite is a ore for the iron. So from this hematite we can extract the pure metal, iron metal, with a most efficiently and a low cost. That's why this hematite is called as the ore for the iron, and the rest of the two are the minerals for the iron, but hematite is only the ore for the iron. Then coming to the aluminum, bauxite is called as the ore for the iron, because the bauxite, from bauxite we can extract the pure aluminum most efficiently with a low cost. So this is the industrial formula: less investment and more profit. So this is the industrial formula. So that's why so by applying this formula here, so which is the ore? Ore is a mineral, but from which mineral we can get the pure metal with the most efficiently and with a low cost is called as the ore. So from here we can make a statement that so all ores are the minerals, but all minerals are not ores. All ores are minerals, but all minerals are not ores. So this is a statement we can make from this context. So then after that, the next term is gong or matrix. See, these metals are available in the earth crust, no? So there may be the chance of the mixing of these earthy impurities with the metals or minerals. So whatever the earthy impurities that are associated with the mineral or ore is called as the gong or matrix. So here, so what are the earthy impurities which were present in the minerals or ores? They are the rocks, mud, clay, sand, siderite, calcite, quartz. So these are the earthy impurities which were associated with the ores. Then coming to the flux. So flux is a chemical substance added to the ore to remove the earthy impurities. See, earthy impurities are not required for us, no? So we have to remove the earthy impurities. So then how we can remove the earthy impurities means by the usage of the some chemical substance, or by the addition of the some chemical substance to the ore. So then we can remove the earthy impurities. So here, so what is that chemical substance? So which is adding. So that chemical substance is added as is called as the flux. So here chemical substance is called as the flux, which is added to remove the earthy impurities. So these fluxes are two types. They are the acidic flux and a basic flux. Yeah. So what is the acidic flux? So if you want to remove the basic impurities, so the chemical substance is added is called as the acidic flux. And what is a basic flux? If there is a acidic impurities are there, if there is a acidic impurities are there, if you want to remove the acidic impurities, the chemical substance added is called as the basic flux. If there is a basic impurities, we are using acidic flux. If there is a acidic impurities, we are using basic flux. Alright, see here some examples has given that. So if there is a basic impurity like calcium oxide is there, so this basic impurity can be removed by the addition of the acidic flux like silica. So by the reaction between these two, it will forms a calcium silicate. Alright, so this can be removed by the simple filtration method, or which can be floated on the surface of the water, or simply so they can be remain in the bottom of the that vessel, right? So then after that, the basic flux. So here also say again same, if there is acidic impurities like silica, so this can be removed by the using the basic flux like calcium oxide. So same, when the reaction between these two, it will form say calcium silicate, so which can be easily removed from the ore particles. Alright, so then after that, the slag. See, slag is a fusible mass formed by the reaction between the gong and flux, and also it is a glass like substances formed by the byproduct left over after desired metal is separated. So this is a glass like material left over after the desired product is or desired metal is separated. So this is removed. So this slag is removed as the byproduct after the metal separation. So whatever the earthy impurities, they will form as a glass like products, so they can be separated from the metal particles. So now the metal particles are easily separated. So this is called as the slag. So here the slag is, for example, you can see here, so this CaO is as a earthy impurities. To remove the CaO, we are adding silica as a flux. So now the reaction between this gong and flux, it will forms calcium silicate, so which is called as the slag. See, slag is a glass like material which is formed by the reaction between gong and flux. Yeah, so these are the terminology used in the metallurgy. So then after that, concentration of the ore. See how we can concentrate the ore. Concentration is here nothing but purification of the ore. See here the purification is generally two types here. So first we have to remove the earthy impurities, the one. So then after that, we have to purify the chemical impurities. Yeah, so how we can remove the earthy impurities means, so there are the several methods were there here. So some methods were given here. The first one is the hand picking method. So what is the hand picking method? If the ore is having the impurities, earthy impurities, which impurity size is bigger. If the impurities present in the ore, if their size is bigger, so then we can just remove by the hand picking method. Just we can pick the impurities with our fingers. So here what are the examples? See, if there is any stones, clay, sand, etc., they were removed by this hand picking method. So then after that, the gravity separation. So this is based on the gravitation principle. See, in this method, what we are doing, so the ore is crushed into the powder and it is mixed with the water, and after that, so this will pour on the sloping table. So from the top of the sloping table, so when we pour this mixture on the sloping table, and the sloping table itself, it is having some ridges. See, when we are pouring this mixture on the top of the sloping table, what happens? The solution will move from the top to the bottom through these ridges. See, during this flow of this solution, whatever the heavier particles, high density particles like metal particles, they will be settled in between the ridges, and the lighter particles or nothing but the whatever the earthy impurities, they'll be flown or they'll be washed along with the water. They'll be come along with the water to the down, and that can be removed. And whatever the metal particles are there, they are having the high density, so they'll be settled in between the ridges. So like this we can just separate the earthy impurities and metal particles. Metal particles are settled in between the ridges, and the earthy impurities, they'll be washed along with the water. They'll be flow along with the water. So right, so there like that we can separate the earthy impurities and the metal particles. The next one is a froth flotation method. So this is a very important method which is used to purify the sulfide ores, especially this is used for the sulfide ores. So because say the sulfide ores are having the special property, like see the metal particles are wetted by the oil layer or oil, then the earthy impurities are wetted by the water. So but based on this principle only, so this froth flotation method was working. See right, so how we can purify the ores by using this froth flotation means, so by taking the metal ore and crushed into the powder, which is mixed with the pine oil and water layer, which is in turn is added by the xanthates, sodium xanthates. So these sodium xanthates are called as the frothing agents. So they'll give the froth, lather. Alright, so now we are adding the ore powder to the pine oil and water mixture. This pine oil and water mixture, when we add these two, so they'll form a heterogeneous system, because oil will not mix with the water. So oil will be stays as a separate layer, and the water is also stays as a separate layer. So these two are in the two different layers systems. All right, so now this is called as a heterogeneous systems. There is a two separate phases. Yeah, so oil phase, water phase. So these are they are not forming a single phase, they are forming a separate phases. That is called as the heterogeneous system. So now we are adding this ore powder to this, and also we are passing this air, compressed air, through this this channel. So now by the passage of this compressed air through this mixture, what happens, so there is a stirring of the solution will takes place. So by the continuous stirring or by the vigorous stirring of the solution, so there is a uniform mixing with between the two layers. Now whatever the metal particles are there in the ore, they'll be stick to the oil and froth bubbles, because so by the passage of the air and stirring, so there is a creation of the froth. So these due to the proper uniform mixing of these ore particles and everything, earthy impurities, so whatever the metal particles are there, they can be stick to the bubbles or froth bubbles, and the whatever the gong, that is earthy impurities are there, so they will be stays in the water layer only. So after some time, so we are we are keeping this mixture aside for some time. What happens, the froth will come up and the water layer comes in the down, right? So now whatever the metal particles are there in the ore, so they'll be stick to the froth and they'll come to the upper layer, that is a froth, and whatever the earthy impurities are there, they'll be settled in the water layer only. So now like this we can separate it already. Whatever the earthy impurities are there, they'll be remain in the water layer, and whatever the metal particles are there, so they'll be stick to the froth bubbles. So now this froth is collected in the other chamber, and it is allowed to subside for some time. From there you can get the pure metal. All right, so then after that the how we can purify the chemical impurities, right? See, up to this we have seen earthy impurities, how we can remove the earthy impurities. So the mud, clay, sand, calcite, siderite, quartz, etc. So these were removed by the three methods we have seen, that is hand picking, gravity separation, and a froth flotation method. So then after that here, extraction of the crude metals, right? So after the earthy impurities were removed, so now how we can remove the chemical impurities? So this can be done by the three stages, three methods, right? They are the roasting, calcination and smelting. Roasting, calcination and smelting. See here, what is roasting? Roasting is the heating of the ore below its melting point in presence of the air or in the excess of the air is called as the roasting. So this method is especially used for the sulfide ores. So in this sulfide ores, when it is subjected to roasting, what is happening here? The metal is converted into metal oxide and the sulfur which is present in the ore, so that is converted to sulfur dioxide. So the sulfur dioxide is a gas which can be removed from it, and the metal which is converted into metal oxide. For example, here when you take the zinc sulfide, so this is the ore for the zinc. So when this zinc is subjected to roasting, what happens? So the heating of the zinc sulfide in presence of the excess air, okay, so what happens? It can converts into zinc oxide plus sulfur dioxide. Alright, so then lead sulfide in presence of the excess air, it is heated or it is subjected to roasting. What happens? It forms a lead oxide plus sulfur dioxide. So the sulfur dioxide is escaped from this mixture. So now whatever the ore we have taken, so that is converted into that metal oxide. Then coming to the next method, that is calcination. So this is also similar to the roasting process. So what is the calcination? So this is the process of the heating of the ore below its melting point in absence of the air is called as the calcination. So again this method is used for the carbonate ores. So in this, the metal is converted into metal oxides and the carbonates are converted to carbon dioxide. So again this carbon dioxide is a gas, so which can be removed from the this mixture, so it can be escaped as a gas. So now the remaining is a metal oxide, right? For example, here you can see the zinc carbonate is a ore here. So when it is subjected to calcination, that is nothing but heating in absence of the air, so this zinc is converted to zinc oxide and this carbonate is converted to carbon dioxide. Again same here, calcium carbonate, even it is subjected to calcination, so it undergoes calcination and forms the calcium is converted to calcium oxide and carbonate is converted to carbon dioxide. So even in the both methods, roasting and calcination, we got the metals are converted to metal oxides. Even if you want to purify, if you want a pure metal, so now here from the roasting and calcination we got the metal oxides. So now we have to remove this oxide, then we can get the pure metal. Alright, so now how we can remove this oxygen means, so removal of oxygen is called as a reduction. So by conducting the reduction process of these crude metals which were formed from the roasting and calcination, so that process is called as the smelting. Smelting is nothing but heating of the roasted and calcinated ores with a reducing agent and a flux is called as the smelting. What is the smelting? Heating of the roasted and calcined ores. Heating of the roasted and calcined ores along with a reducing agent and a flux is called as the smelting. Alright, so now here one example has given that iron ferric oxide is heated with the carbon monoxide, so it will gives elemental iron and a carbon dioxide. That carbon dioxide is removed. Okay, here in the iron oxide, so that iron oxide can be removed by the addition of this reducing agent. Okay, then it will forms a elemental metal. So like this we can purify the metals by the smelting process. So then coming to the next one, that is electrolytic refining of the metals. Here, what is electrolytic refining? So this we have already seen in the case of the electrochemistry 1 in the first semester, that is electrolysis processes. So decomposition of the electrolyte into cation and anion when we pass the electricity through it, and there is a movement of the cations towards the cathode and anions towards the anode, and at the cathode the reduction will take place, at the anode oxidation will takes place. So this is called as the electrolysis process, right? So here, so this electrolysis process is used for the purification of the metal, so that is called as the electrolytic refining of the metals. Here what happens, impure metal is taken as the anode and pure metal is taken as the cathode. Now these two electrodes were dipped in the suitable electrolyte and which were connected to the battery. When we are passing the electricity through this electrolytic solution, what happens, so whatever the metal ions that are present in the impure metal anode, so they'll dissolve into electrolytic solution and goes to the cathode and coated on the surface of this cathode. So now whatever the metals, pure metal ions that are present in the impure anode, they goes and coated on the surface of the cathode. So now whatever the impurities are there, they will be settled in the bottom of the electrolytic cell. So that is called as the anode mud. So that impurities settled in the electrolytic cell is called as the anode mud. So like this. So this is a very simple process. So we can purify the a large scale of the metals by using this electrolytic refining, because so at a time we can connect the number of electrolytic cell in a series. So at a time we can purify the a large scale of the ores. We can purify the large scale of the ores or metals. Alright. So this is the ultimate technique which is used for the purification of the metals. For example, here you can see the purification of the copper here. So here impure copper, thick, that is nothing but bigger in size, so that is thick impure copper electrode is taken as the anode, and a thin pure copper electrode is taken as the cathode, and these two electrodes were dipped in the copper sulfate solution. When we pass the electricity, so whatever the copper ions that are present in the impure anode, they dissolves into this copper sulfate solution and goes to the cathode and coated on the surface of the cathode. So by this what happens, so whatever the copper ions are there in the impure copper anode, they goes and coated on the surface of the pure copper cathode. So like this, so all the coppers were coated on the surface of the pure cathode, and whatever the impurities are, they will be settled in the bottom of the vessel, that is called as the anode mud. Then after that, alloys. What is the alloy? What is the alloy? Why we have to prepare alloys? And what are the examples of the alloys? Properties of the alloys? Pure metal and alloy, and what is the necessity to prepare alloys, and what is the differences between the pure metal and alloys. Okay, so these we are going to see in this one. So first of all, what is the alloy? Yeah, alloy is a homogeneous mixture of the two or more than two metals. Okay, it is a homogeneous mixture of the two or more than two metals is called as the alloy. It's a simple. Or alloy is a mixture of the two or more elements with certain fixed composition in which the major component is a metal is called as the alloy. Or simply we can say it's a homogeneous mixture of the two or more than two metals is called as the alloys. Oh, see how the alloys are made. So the pure metal, you can see the arrangement of the atoms in the pure metals. See here, you can see the patterns. So when coming to the preparation of the alloys, see the first one is a pure metal, and another one, the second one is another pure metal. So when we are preparing the alloy, so there is a mixture of these two metals. So that is a pure metal A and pure metal B. So they were mixing together, and there is a change in the pattern of the arrangement of the molecules. So then the alloy behaves different from the A and B. So now the properties of the alloy is different from the rest of the two, the reactants or the basic materials, that is the metal A, pure metal A and pure metal B. So when we compare the properties of this alloy is different from these both metals. Yeah. Alloys. Combination of two or more than two metals form homogeneous mixture is called as the alloy. Now what are the advantages of the alloys? See, these alloys or metals have some disadvantages to metals are having some disadvantages. To overcome these disadvantages, alloys were prepared, and need to see what are the advantages of these alloys. Yeah, the first one is to improve the tensile strength. Yeah, actually the metals are having the high tensile strength, but even we have to improve the tensile strength, so the alloys are prepared. Then ductility and toughness, right? Metals are very hard, no? So, and ductility means making into the thin wires. See, even if we prepare these alloys, they were very smooth to handle. All right. See, to improve these tensile strength, ductility and toughness, alloys were prepared. So this is the one. Next, to improve the elasticity, okay, stretching capacity and heat resistance, right? So then next, to improve corrosion resistance, because so very dangerous disadvantages of these metals are nothing but, see, these metals are highly reactive, so they can react with the environmental gases and they'll undergo corrosion. See, 1/4 of the metal in the world for every year is undergoing destruction, right? This is very big loss to the industries as well as the domestic purpose. So right, so to overcome or to prevent this corrosion process, see, these alloys are prepared, so they are corrosion resistant. These alloys are corrosion resistance. The next, to decrease the melting point, because the metals are having the high melting points, because if you want to convert this iron into a liquid, so you have to heat up to the 1600 degrees centigrade temperature. So it is very big temperature. If you want to heat that much, means you need a more fuel. Very it is a large scale of the fuel is used for this. All right. So it is not good, right? See, to minimize these melting points, the alloys are prepared. So they'll melt at the even low temperatures. All right. Then next, to decrease the density, when you compare the metal with the alloys are very light in weight, whereas the metals are high density. Next, now the examples of the alloys: bronze, brass, steel, stainless steel, duralumin, pewter. So these are the examples of the alloys. Yeah. Next, coming to the composition of the alloys and their uses. So now the first one is the brass. See, brass is a alloy of the copper and zinc. So this is the alloy of the copper and zinc. So now the definite compositions of these copper and zincs were mixing together, it will form a alloy that is called as the brass. So when you see the composition of the copper and zinc, copper is from 60 to 90% and zinc is from 40 to 10%. So this is the composition of the brass. So you can prepare the brass only in these ranges only. Otherwise, if you are deviating from this composition, if you are differing this composition, so the brass will not form. Yeah. Next, uses of the brass. So where it is used in the preparation of the hardwares, screws, nuts and bolts. Second one, it is used in the plumbing, jewelry and battery caps, and also it is used in the decoratory articles and condenser caps. So these are the uses of the brass, and its composition is given. Composition is 60 to 90. Copper is 60 to 90. Zinc is 40 to 10. And uses are the they are used in the preparation of hardware, screws, nuts, bolts, plumbing, jewelry, battery caps, decoratory articles, and condenser caps. Yeah, next. Second one is the German silver. German silver. So now German silver is a alloy of the copper, zinc, and tin metals. Copper, zinc, and tin metal. So when you see the composition of these metals, copper is a 25 to 50%, and zinc is a 10 to 35%, tin is a 5 to 35%, right? So according to these compositions, so this German silver were prepared. So when you are coming to the uses of this German silver, yeah, it is used in the preparation of the utensils like spoons and forks, and also it is used in the preparation of the tableware, bolts, and screws, right? Then it is used in the preparation of the coins and decorative articles. So these are the uses of the German silver. Composition is 25 to 50% copper, 10 to 35% zinc, 5 to 35% tin. Uses are, it is used in the preparation of the utensils like spoons and forks, tableware, bolts, screws, coins, and decorative articles. Next, nichrome. See, this nichrome is a alloy of the nickel, iron, and chromium. Nickel, iron, and chromium metals. When you are coming to see the composition of this nichrome, nickel is 60%, chromium 12%, manganese 2%, iron 26%. Nickel 60%, chromium 12%, manganese 2%, iron 26%. So this is the composition of the nichrome. And coming to the uses of this nichrome, yeah, it is it is having the high chemical and heat resistance. Therefore it is used in the preparation of the chemical containers, water heaters, and also it is used in the preparation of the resistance coils, heating elements like stoves, electric irons, and also it is used in the preparation of the coins. Alright, so nichrome composition is nickel 60, chromium 12, manganese 2, iron 26%. Then coming to the uses, so due to the high chemical and heat resistance, they are used in the preparation of the chemical containers, water heaters, resistance coils, heating elements like stoves and electric irons, and also it is used in the preparation of the coins. Next, stainless steel. So it is a alloy of the iron, chromium, and carbon. So now when we see the composition, iron is 74%, chromium is 18%, carbon is 8%. Okay, then uses, it is used in the preparation of the chemical equipments and automobile parts, and also it is used in the making of the sinks, utensils, dental and surgical instruments, right? So it is a alloy of the metals and non-metal. Here carbon is a non-metal. Yeah, iron is 74%, chromium is 18%, carbon is 8%, and uses are the, it is used in the preparation of the chemical equipment and automobile parts, and also in the making of the sinks, utensils, dental and surgical instruments. Then finally duralumin. So this is the alloy of the four metals. They are aluminium, copper, manganese, and magnesium. So when we see the composition, aluminium is 95%, copper is 4%, manganese 0.5%, magnesium 0.5%, right? So then coming to the uses, so due to light good strength and low density, it is used in aircrafts, and also it is used in automobile and locomotive parts. Due to high ductility and electrical conductivity, it is used in surgical instruments and cable, fluorescent tube caps, etc. So this duralumin is used here like this. All right. The composition is aluminium 95%, copper 4%, manganese and magnesium 0.5 0.5 percentage. Then coming to the uses, due to its light weight and good strength, okay, and also low density, it is used in the aircrafts, and also it is used in the automobile and locomotive parts, preparation of the automobile and locomotive parts. And then due to high ductility and electrical conductivity, it is used in the surgical instruments and cables, and also fluorescent tube caps, etc. So these are the uses of the duralumin. So this is a table showing the properties of the alloys. When you see the composition, so then you can get the properties and uses and composition. So this here it is given. Yeah. So with this, so this principles of metallurgy is completed. See, in this we have seen what is the metallurgy and what are the properties of the metals. So then after that, the differences between the metals and non-metal, and the terminology used in the metallurgy. Then after that, we have seen concentration of the ores. So how we can remove the earthy impurities, and also how we can remove the chemical impurities. Earthy impurities were removed by the simple methods like hand picking, gravity separation, then froth flotation. And the chemical impurities were removed by the methods like roasting, calcination, and smelting. Right. So then after that, we have seen electrolytic refining of the metal. So this is a method used by the electrolysis process is used in the purification of the metal. So this is ultimate technique which is used to purify the metals. So then after that, we have seen alloys. Alloys are the homogeneous mixture of the two or more than two metals. So there may be the chance of mixing of the non-metals also. So we have seen different alloys, their composition and their uses. See, so this is the importance of the metallurgy. So then we have seen the different composition of the alloys. So alloys are having their own advantages over the metals, because the metals are having some disadvantages, no. So to overcome these disadvantages, these alloys were prepared. So these alloys are playing very important role in the making of the different types of the instruments and also machinery, because they have a less corrosion. So they are corrosion resistant, because the main damage, main disadvantage of the metals is a corrosion. So here these alloys will not undergo corrosion because they are corrosion resistant. All right. So like this, we are overcoming the whatever the disadvantages with the pure metals. So with this, I am concluding this today's class. So that thank you.